She didn't flinch. That was the part no one could explain afterward. Not the concierge who watched from behind his desk. Not the couple near the elevator, who had gone very still. Not even the manager himself, who would spend the next 3 weeks trying to understand what he had done and why it had felt so easy in the moment. The woman standing in the lobby of the Harrington Grand hadn't moved. She hadn't stepped back. She hadn't raised her voice or reached for her phone or done any of the things a person does when they've been publicly humiliated in the middle of a hotel lobby in downtown Toronto on a Tuesday morning in March. She had simply looked at him. Her name was Celina Boateng, but the manager didn't know that yet. What he saw was a woman in her mid-40s wearing a gray tracksuit that had been washed too many times, a pair of white running shoes with a small scuff on the left toe, and a canvas tote bag printed with the logo of a public library in Scarborough. She had arrived at the front entrance without a car. No driver, no luggage cart, no one holding a door, and had walked in the way people walk when they've walked into a lot of places and stopped being surprised by any of them. The lobby of the Harrington Grand was not the kind of place people walked into quietly. It was designed to announce itself. 40-foot ceilings, pale marble floors imported from Portugal, a chandelier that had been featured in 3 separate architecture magazines, and a front desk staffed by people trained to project a very specific kind of warmth. The kind that calculated, in under 4 seconds, how much warmth was warranted. The woman in the tracksuit had crossed the lobby toward the front desk, and that was when the manager stepped in. His name was Craig Dempsey, 38 years old, 14 years with the Harrington Group, recently promoted to general manager of this property after successful stints in Vancouver and Halifax. He was good at his job. That was something his colleagues would still say afterward, when they were trying to make sense of it. Craig was good at his job. He just had a very clear picture in his mind of what the Harrington Grand looked like, and more specifically, of who belonged in it. He had crossed the lobby himself, quietly, efficiently, the way he moved through every situation, as if he were already solving a problem before anyone had named it. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was pleasant, controlled. "Can I help you find somewhere?" Celina Boateng had turned to look at him. She had a calm face. Not the calm of someone who didn't understand what was happening. The calm of someone who understood it very precisely and had decided to wait. "I'm checking in," she said. Craig smiled. The smile he'd been trained to use when a situation required gentle redirection. "Of course, our check-in time isn't until 3, and our lobby is really reserved for." He paused, searching for the word. "Registered guests. If you'd like to wait, there's a cafe on King Street just around the corner that's quite good." The woman hadn't moved. "I'm a registered guest," she said. "Right." The smile again. "Do you have a reservation confirmation you can show me?" She reached into the canvas tote, the one with the library logo, and produced her phone. She turned it toward him. He glanced at it. There it was, a reservation confirmation for the Harrington Grand Toronto for a Superior King room for 2 nights, under the name C. Boateng. Craig looked at it, and then he looked at her, and something happened in his face. A small recalibration, like a calculation that had come out wrong and was being quietly adjusted to fit the expected answer. "This is a reservation for our standard tier," he said, and his voice had taken on the tone of a man performing patience. "I'm going to have to ask you to wait in the designated area until our rooms are prepared. We have a guest lounge on the 2nd floor, but access is for," another pause, "premier members and above." "I'm a premier member," Celina said. He didn't answer that. Instead, he turned slightly, just slightly, toward the concierge desk and gave a small nod, the kind of nod that meant handle this, and said, with the warmth turned off now, not rudely, but with the specific coldness of dismissal, "I think there may have been a booking error. Let me have someone look into it for you." And that was when she looked at him the way she had looked at him. Not with anger, not with hurt, just with attention. The kind of attention that collects information and files it away and does not forget. She picked up her bag. She walked to the far end of the lobby, near the window that looked out onto King Street, and she sat down in one of the low chairs. There, the ones guests weren't supposed to use without a key card, and she took out her phone. She made one call. She hadn't grown up with lobbies like this. That was the truth of it, the part that nobody in that hotel knew, and that wouldn't have changed anything if they had. Or maybe it would have, which was the more uncomfortable thought. Celina Boateng had grown up in Regent Park, in Toronto in the 90s, when Regent Park was still a place the rest of the city mostly tried not to think about. Her mother had worked nights at a commercial laundry in Etobicoke. Her father had been briefly present and then not present at all. She had been raised in a two-bedroom apartment by a woman who was almost always tired, and who still, somehow, made Celina feel like the most important person in every room she entered. She had been good at school, not in the way teachers noticed immediately, not loud, not showy, but in the quiet way of someone who understood that information was the one thing that couldn't be taken away. She had gotten a scholarship to the University of Toronto, had studied computer science at a time when the department was 90% male, and the casual assumption was that she was there by accident. Had graduated and taken a job at a startup in Kitchener that collapsed 18 months later, taking her first salary with it. And then she had started something herself. It had begun as a logistics software platform, a tool for small businesses to manage inventory and shipping in a way that the big players had made deliberately complicated to keep small operators dependent. She had built the first version herself, in the second bedroom of an apartment she shared with two other women, over 14 months, while working part-time at a call center to pay rent. The company was called Base Chain. By its fifth year, it was processing over $4 billion in commercial transactions annually across Canada and the northern United States. By its eighth year, it had been acquired, partially, not entirely, because Celina had read enough to know the difference and had insisted on keeping control, by a consortium that valued the platform at just over $2 billion. She had stayed on as CEO. She was worth, at the time she walked into the lobby of the Harrington Grand, approximately $1.4 billion. She was also exhausted from a red-eye from Vancouver, and wearing a tracksuit, because she had learned a long time ago that comfort on overnight flights mattered more than appearances. And she had stopped being interested in performing wealth for rooms full of strangers sometime around her fourth year of having it. The canvas tote bag was from the Scarborough Public Library, because she had done a fundraiser for them the previous fall, and they had given her one, and she had used it ever since because it fit her laptop perfectly. None of this was visible from across the lobby of the Harrington Grand. Craig Dempsey had not seen any of it. What he had seen was a woman in a gray tracksuit who didn't look like she belonged. The call she made, sitting in the chair by the window, lasted 4 minutes. She spoke quietly. The person on the other end, her assistant, whose name was Delphine, and who had been with her for 6 years and understood exactly what a 4-minute call in a quiet voice meant, said very little. She took notes. She confirmed 2 things. She said she would follow up. Celina ended the call and sat for a moment with her phone in her hand, looking out at King Street. A streetcar went past. A man walked by with a large coffee and a dog that was trying to investigate everything on the sidewalk simultaneously. She was not shaking. She was not crying. She was doing what she had always done when something unfair happened. Collecting it, examining it, deciding what it meant and what, if anything, she intended to do about it. She thought about her mother. Her mother had worked at that laundry for 11 years and had never once been asked if she was comfortable, had been called by her first name by people she'd never met while she called them Mr. and Mrs., had stood on concrete floors for 8-hour shifts and been told, when she asked about the chairs the supervisors used, that the chairs were for supervisors. Celina had been 14 when her mother told her that story. She had asked why her mother hadn't complained, hadn't pushed back, hadn't demanded better. Her mother had looked at her with an expression that was neither defeated nor resigned, but something more complicated. The expression of a woman who had calculated the costs of a thing very precisely and made her choice with clear eyes. I needed the job, her mother had said. But you don't ever let yourself be in a position where someone else holds the door. Celina had built an entire company around that one sentence. Had made every decision, from the first line of code to the terms of the acquisition, with that sentence in the back of her head. Never let someone else hold the door. She got up from the chair. She walked back to the front desk. The concierge who was on duty, a young woman named Avril, who had watched the whole exchange from behind her screen and had felt something in her chest tighten and then clench, looked up. I'd like to speak with someone about my reservation, Celina said. Calmly, clearly. Avril nodded. She picked up the internal phone. She dialed the number for the general manager's office, and then, before it connected, she glanced at the reservation on her screen, the one under C, Boateng, and noticed something that Craig Dempsey, in his confidence, had not bothered to look at. The room type was not a Superior King. The reservation had been modified that morning at 7:14 a.m. by someone in the VIP services department. The room type on the screen was the Harrington Suite. 2 nights, complimentary upgrade, flagged in the notes as corporate preference. Long-standing client. Avril looked at the name, again, C. Boateng. She looked at the woman standing across the desk. She set down the internal phone and picked up a different one. Craig was in his office on the 3rd floor when his direct line rang. It was the Director of Corporate Relations, a woman named Sandra Park, who operated out of the Harrington Group's head office in Montreal, and who called Craig's property approximately 4 times a year, always about things that required his complete attention. She was not calm. Craig. A pause that contained several things. Tell me you didn't just turn Celina Boateng away from the lobby. He was quiet for a moment. I redirected a guest who appeared to be Craig. Her voice was the voice of someone who had rehearsed patience and was now choosing not to use it. Celina Boateng is the founder and CEO of BaseChain. The Harrington Group has a preferred corporate partnership with BaseChain that covers hotel accommodation for over 200 of their staff nationally. That contract, the one we've been trying to renew for the past 3 months, the one that's worth approximately $4.2 million annually to this company, she is the person who signs it. Craig said nothing. She's also on the advisory board of the Ontario Tourism Partnership, Sandra continued, which is currently reviewing applications for the Provincial Hotel Designation Program, which this property has been trying to qualify for since last year. Another pause, and she has approximately 600,000 followers on LinkedIn. The silence in the office was the kind that has its own weight. She was in a tracksuit, Craig said. He heard, as he said it, exactly how it sounded. Yes, said Sandra. She was in a tracksuit. A beat. Get downstairs. What happened next was witnessed by 7 people in the lobby of the Harrington Grand. And all 7 would describe it slightly differently, but agree on the essential shape of it. Craig Dempsey came down from the 3rd floor. He crossed the lobby with the purposeful walk of a man who is trying to look like he is not hurrying. He approached the woman who was standing at the front desk. The woman in the gray tracksuit with the library tote bag, who was watching him come toward her with an expression that gave away nothing. He introduced himself. He apologized. He used the word miscommunication twice, which she did not respond to. He offered the suite upgrade, which had already been arranged. He offered a complimentary dinner in the dining room. He said the words valued guest and highest standard of service in the tone of someone reading from a document they had not fully absorbed. She let him finish. Then she said, I'd like to check in, please. Not warmly, not coldly, simply as a statement of what she intended to do next. Avril completed the check-in in under 3 minutes. She handed over the key card. She said quietly as Celina picked up her bag, I'm sorry about earlier. Celina looked at her. The look was not unkind. You don't need to apologize for him, she said. She walked to the elevator. She didn't make any public statements that day. She had a nap, which she had been needing since Vancouver. She ordered room service, a club sandwich and a pot of tea, and ate it sitting cross-legged on the bed, reading through a contract on her laptop. She called her mother, who lived now in a house in Pickering that Celina had bought for her 8 years ago, and who answered the phone the way she always did, as if she had been waiting for the call and was genuinely happy to receive it. "How's Toronto?" her mother asked. "Cold," Celina said, and a bit of what it always was. Her mother made a sound that was not quite a laugh. "You okay?" "Yeah," Celina said. And she was. That was the thing. She was. "I'm okay." She did not post anything. She did not send an email. She did not call Sandra Park back or speak to anyone at the Harrington Group beyond confirming her checkout time. What she did do was have a conversation with Delphine the following morning when she was packed and ready to leave. And Delphine, who had been doing research since the previous morning's 4-minute phone call, laid out a set of options in the clear, organized way she always did. "The contract renewal meeting is in 11 days, Delphine said, through the phone speaker while Celina folded a sweater into her bag. "It's a 4-year renewal. Total value, given the rate adjustments and the expanded staff count, is closer to $5 million now." "I know," Celina said. "Do you want me to schedule it as planned?" A pause. "No," Celina said. "Move it and send a note to the team. I want them to know why." Another beat. Not aggressively, just honestly. Delphine made a note. "And the advisory board review? The tourism designation?" Celina zipped the bag. "That process has a lot of voices. Mine is one of them." She picked up the canvas tote. "But I'll make sure mine is heard." The story didn't break publicly for another 4 days. It wasn't Celina who told it. It was Avril, who had gone home on Tuesday evening and sat with what she'd seen and what she'd done and what she hadn't done, and had, after 2 days of sitting with it, written a post on her personal LinkedIn that was 4 paragraphs long and very specific, and did not name Celina, but described the situation in enough detail that anyone who had been in the lobby would have recognized it immediately. She wrote about what it had felt like to watch it happen, about the moment she had noticed the reservation and understood what had been done and what was at stake, and felt with a clarity she hadn't expected that she could not continue to work in a place that operated this way without saying something, even if saying something had a cost. The post got shared 800 times in the first 24 hours. Then it got picked up by a journalist at the Toronto Star, who knew how to make a call and had, within 48 hours, confirmed the identity of the guest, confirmed the contract situation, confirmed Craig Dempsey's employment status, which, by that point, had changed. The headline ran on a Friday: "Harrington Grand Manager out after turning away Black Billionaire in lobby. Contract worth $5 million at risk." Celina read it on her phone in her office in Kitchener. She read it once. She set the phone down. She picked it up and read it again. Then she called Delphine. "Send flowers to Avril," she said. "Nice ones. And ask HR. I don't know if she's still at the hotel or not, but if she's looking, I want to know." The response from the Harrington Group was fast and, in the particular way of large hospitality companies, very carefully worded. A statement acknowledged that the manager's conduct had not reflected the company's values, noted that corrective action had been taken, expressed a deep commitment to inclusive and welcoming service for all guests. Sandra Park called Celina directly. She did not use the word miscommunication. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Not on behalf of the company. From me. I should have flagged this property more carefully. I should have made sure." "Sandra," Celina said, not unkindly, "what you should make sure of is that this doesn't happen to the next woman who walks in looking like she might not belong." A silence. "Yes," said Sandra, "you're right. I'm not interested in the flowers and the statement," Celina said. "I've had a lot of flowers in my life. What I want is for your training programs to actually say the thing they should say, which is that a woman in a tracksuit with a library bag deserves exactly the same welcome as a woman in a blazer with a Louis Vuitton carry-on. That's it. That's the whole thing." Sandra said she would make sure of it. Whether she did or not would take longer to determine than a phone call allowed, and Celina knew that, but she said it anyway. Because some things need to be said clearly and on the record, even when the record is imperfect. The contract was not renewed with the Harrington Group. This was not, in the end, purely punitive. BaseChain's legal team had been reviewing the terms anyway, and 2 competing hotel groups had submitted proposals that were more competitive on pricing and meaningfully stronger on the equity commitments that Celina had begun requiring in all of her corporate agreements the previous year. The timing meant that the loss landed in the news cycle in a particular way, and the Harrington Group stock, which was publicly traded, dipped 4% over the course of the following week, which, on a company of that size, represented tens of millions of dollars in market capitalization, not in a day, but over days, as investors and industry analysts and a handful of institutional clients began asking questions. The questions were not only about a tracksuit. They were about what a tracksuit revealed, what assumptions lived inside an institution, how those assumptions had been allowed to operate, how long they had been operating, and whether the people at the top had known or hadn't known, and which of those possibilities was worse. Craig Dempsey was not available for comment. He had signed a separation agreement and was, according to someone who knew him, spending a lot of time thinking about what had happened, which was at least something. Celina gave a talk in April. It was at a business conference in Calgary, a women's entrepreneurship event that she had been booked to keynote for 8 months, long before any of the hotel story had happened. The organizer had, gently, suggested in the week before the event that she might want to address it. Celina had thought about that for 2 days, and then she had said yes. She didn't talk about it for long, maybe 6 minutes out of a 40-minute keynote. She didn't dramatize it. She said that she had walked into a hotel lobby in Toronto in March and been treated as though she did not belong there, and that this was not a new experience, and that the only thing that was different this time was that the consequences had been visible to people outside the room. "What I want to say to you," she told the room, 300 women, most of them entrepreneurs, many of them women of color, many of them not, all of them listening with the quality of attention that happens when something true is being said, is that the version of this story that gets told is almost always about me. About the billionaire who was underestimated, about the power reveal, about the mistake that cost millions. She paused. But the story that doesn't get told is the one happening to women who don't have $2 billion behind them when they walk through a door. That story happens every day. It happened to my mother for 11 years on concrete floors without anyone writing an article about it. The room was quiet in the way. Rooms get quiet when they're paying attention rather than waiting. I don't want you to take away from this that the lesson is: be powerful enough that the cost of disrespecting you becomes visible. That's not the lesson. She looked out at the room. The lesson is that respect is not a reward. It is not something a person earns by revealing the right credentials. It is the floor. It is the minimum. And until we build institutions that actually treat it that way, not in their mission statements, not in their training decks, but in the actual moment when a woman in a gray tracksuit walks through a door, we are going to keep having to tell these stories. She stepped back from the podium. The applause started slowly, the way it does when people are still processing something, and then it built, and she stood there and received it without performance, without the tears some people expected, without anything other than the quiet acknowledgement of someone who had said what she meant to say and was now done saying it. Afterward, a young woman, maybe 23, 24, came and found her near the back of the room. She was wearing a blazer that looked like it had been carefully pressed for the occasion. She said she had grown up in Rexdale. She said she was building something, a software platform, early stage, still figuring it out. She said she didn't know if she had what it took. Celina looked at her. She thought about a 2-bedroom apartment in Regent Park, and a mother who was almost always tired, and a second bedroom that had been turned into an office for 14 months. "What's the problem you're solving?" Celina asked. The young woman told her. Celina listened. She asked 2 questions, and then she said something that the young woman would remember for a long time, not because it was dramatic, but because it was the kind of thing that lands differently when it comes from someone who means it. "The work is the answer to the question," Celina said. "You keep doing the work, and eventually the question stops mattering." She handed the young woman her card. Then she picked up her canvas tote bag, the one with the library logo on it, and walked out into the Calgary afternoon, where it was cold and bright and entirely indifferent to who she was or where she had come from, which was, she had always found, one of the more honest things about weather.